My residency at Northern Guilford Middle School through the MAT program at Lenoir-Rhyne University was a great experience. My cooperating teacher had 16 years of teaching experience, so I was able to learn a lot. He was very organized, the class was engaged, there was a posted clear agenda for daily, weekly, and unit assignments, smooth transitions with no dead time in class, differentiation in the lessons, and the lessons were structured to constantly reinforce important information. My next step is to utilize technology to alleviate paperwork and facilitate computer-based grading. Here you see me teaching. This is the notebook that was posted daily in class and the warm-ups. The students kept these in 3-ring binders, and my program here is to convert this to technology-based software. Okay, so to begin my adaptation of a successful classroom plan, the table of contents is an important part of the process. So converting a paper table of contents to the students keeping a table of contents online is the beginning of this process. A physical table of contents is important to display in the room as part of the agenda, but everything will be transferred onto the students' laptops. What this will do is, first of all, most importantly, organize their work. Eventually there's a open notebook test that they're going to use this information and the organization to be able to find the information. It also has a daily agenda, so new pages will be added to the OneNote, and access to materials will also be provided on the OneNote. This gives them a list of pages for the week, for the chapter, for the unit, eventually for the unit. Students know what they missed also, so if they miss a class, they can look at the table of contents that's displayed in the room and know what to add to their table of contents. Students also can self-differentiate, and we'll go over that later, but by choosing different assignments, they differentiate their own lessons. And students can use the table of contents eventually for the open notebook test. Part of successful instructional design that I learned during my residency was from my cooperative teacher and his use of warm-ups daily. The warm-ups included information from earlier in the year, earlier in the unit, and then current or to be introduced information. So here's an example of a post-tour warm-up once the students surveyed the chapter. These are some of the questions relating to slavery. As I look at different warm-ups, we're going to see that some questions have been repeated. And so his use of warm-ups and layering the information and the questions over several periods of time is what I want to adapt. This is another that mentions antebellum, the question of antebellum, the money-making crops. Again, this is warm-ups that are based on the antebellum period. There's questions on antebellum, some new information, and then an announcement for the notebook test. So the warm-ups provide reinforcement of information connection to other information, so the students not only know the information, but they understand how one event is connected to another event, which is part of the historical goals. The warm-ups also engage the class immediately. So as the students come in, they're instructed to have a seat, look over the pages, add this page to their table of contents, and then briefly answer the questions. After the students are given time to answer the questions, the class is open to a class discussion, which then, if need be, is prompted by Socratic questions, open-ended questions where the students have to make these connections and demonstrate their understanding of the different topics. Okay, going back to our table of contents, we have a slavery quiz that's listed on page 6. The students have access to that. That can be a link or it can be on Google Docs. If it's on Google Docs, it would make it more accessible for grading. This is the quiz, and it's a vocabulary quiz with a word bank. The students fill in the blanks with the appropriate answer. So this is one alternative to quizzes. The idea of using technology is to make the access to the quizzes and grading of the quizzes more efficient. So another option would be what I'm going to cover next, which is Quizlet. Quizlet is a great software to set up these quizzes. So this would be added to the table of contents instead of the Google Docs quiz. And so Quizlet gives you a chance to track your students' progress, see how their students are studying on Quizlet, add images and study sets to make them more engaging. So like screencast, you can add audio to it. Create groups in the class to answer the questions, and create your own teams. So an example of the quiz on Quizlet, this is true and false questions. And they would answer, of course, by clicking on it, and after it you would be provided with the answers and also percentages on how the class were able to answer the questions. This is multiple choice questions. Similar format. There's also the ability to answer essay questions or quick write questions. So in summary, Quizlet gives you the ability to track the student's progress, and it automatically grades the papers. With 120 students, this is one of my objectives on my instructional design, to convert some of the paper, pencil and paper work that the students are doing onto some type of technology. So Quizlet is a great tool for quizzes. All right, on our universal design for learning, the first column is talking about representations or presentation to the students. So offering ways of customizing the display, offering alternatives to auditory information, and also offering alternatives to visual information. Second column is clarifying vocabulary, clarifying syntax, and support decoding of text. So one of the tools for that is PowerPoint. In this particular chapter, there's several different PowerPoints. This one is on slavery and life on the cotton plantation. So there's an introduction. There's information covering slave ships, cotton itself, the importance of the cotton gin, and this leads to the knowledge of the information of the cotton gin and then understanding the effect of the development of this machine had on slavery and the growth of slavery. Information on how it worked, some definitions of the slave code, which was one of the questions on the previously on the warm-ups. Dramatic pictures of actual auction sites and people on the plantation. So PowerPoints, like the rest of the information given to the students, will be added to their table of contents. Again, the table of contents is physically located in the room, and the students copy the information onto their OneNote, and in this case, Life of the Plantation. So plantation and slavery. One of the things that we're going to see on the PowerPoint is reinforcing information. So it starts off with the cotton gin, which was on the last PowerPoint, and this one has more illustrations and more explanation. And to lead to the understanding of the effects of the cotton gin, before one person could clean 1 pound of cotton a day, now one person can clean 50 pounds of cotton a day. Some illustrations in the slave population in 1830. Ways the cotton gin changed the life in the South that triggered more cotton production, made cotton king of the South. And other effects of this particular historical event. All right, continuing with the PowerPoints. The PowerPoints overlap the information to reinforce the information, and they provide the students with particular knowledge of individuals and events, but also an understanding of how those individuals and events connect to other aspects in history. This is on the Underground Railroad and abolitionists. The idea here is to provide different visuals and engagement for the students. Levi Kaufman is from Guilford County, which is a local connection and a personal connection. Now, after the students review the PowerPoint, the next step is for them to work on their note pack. So the note pack is guided questions on that particular subject. In this case, the growing tensions, and this information again would be overlapped and reviewed. Some of this information we saw in the PowerPoints. Some of it will be on the other game platforms to reinforce the information. The students then would answer these questions. So this was done on paper and pencil in my cooperative teachers class. One of the things that I want to do is take these note packs and convert this to technology, either on Google Docs or on OneNote itself. Here's an example of a student working through the NotePack or Note package off of or coordinated with PowerPoint. In this particular case, the student made bullet points of important dates in chronological order. The next OneNote is notes on particular figures, abolitionists, Frederick Douglass, and important information from that period of time. Again, the idea is for the students to gain the knowledge and also the understanding of how these events connect to another event. Another OneNote page would be on Go Down Moses. This is a song, and it asks the students to write a story based on this information and the information from the chapter. So again, all of this is organized through OneNote. The students keep a list on their table of contents. The table of contents is reinforced in the classroom in a physical form, and the students have this information that they can access on Canvas and then download it into their personal OneNote folder. And again, periodically they have an open book or open notebook quiz or test where they can reference the information through their notebook. This again was done physically in the past when I was observing the classes. It's a great plan. The students really reinforced the information, but some of the students were entirely disorganized with keeping up with their notes. They had them, but they were just stuffed into a trapper or mixed up. So the idea of my instructional design is to convert what was on paper using technology and the advancements in technology, especially this particular program, OneNote. It's just a great conversion from the paper and pencil to technology. The students can still have the same open notebook test, and they can use their notebook and table of contents to find the information. All right, if we go back to our table of contents, there's Ken Burns' OneNotes. So the presentation in class would be the Emmy Award-winning documentary by Florentine Films of the Civil War by Ken Burns. So the students again would list this in their table of contents, and there's guided notes to go along with the film. So YouTube gives you the ability to save a link to a particular point in the video. So preparing for this video for Lenoir-Rhyne, I saved a link to the point on the Ken Burns introduction that covers slavery.
Any understanding of this nation has to be based, and I mean really based, on an understanding of the Civil War. I believe that firmly. It defined us. The Revolution did what it did. Our involvement in the European wars together with the First World War did what it did. But the Civil War defined it.
So the Civil War by Ken Burns has historians like Shelby Foote and other historians covering the knowledge and understanding of how historical events connect from one event to the other. When I showed this to the students during my student teaching, they were engaged. This is a 6-hour video, so of course I didn't show a 6-hour video, and the cueing from YouTube to a particular spot assists in the ability to do that. This particular spot I saved was about 10 minutes long.
Production soared. With it, demand for slaves. By 1860, the last year of peace, 1 out of every 7 Americans belonged to another American.
So that kind of information that you can get from that video is just not something that you can relay to the class that would have that type of an impact. So at the end of that, they were talking about the amount of slaves. 4 million men, women, and children were slaves by the beginning of the Civil War. After the viewing of this video, the students would have similar questions that they had in the note pack relating to the particular spot of the video that they watched. All right, the next step on our OneNote table of contents is some gamification as a way to reinforce the student's information. So in this PowerPoint, I look at 3 different platforms to review, to quiz, to assess, and differentiate. Mechanics must match the learning objective to be effective. When successful, a game's mechanics can be the message driving home the content. So the first game platform is Kahoots. This particular Kahoot game is on the American civil rights. So this is not the actual game, this is the setup to the game. The students get questions and they're answered in colors. 1, 2, 3, or 4, or red, blue, orange, and green. And it's a timed question. So these are typed questions, and you see here that the time is, you have 4 choices and 20 seconds on each one of these questions. So the advantages of Kahoots, it's timed, so it can be used in a short interval during class. It works really well on reviewing subjects, and the kids get very engaged. They get excited about the competition. The disadvantage is because students have a time limit on answering the questions, they select the wrong ones in their rush to answer. And it does require some prior knowledge, so it doesn't lend itself to the beginning of a chapter. And this is a quote from Barber: "Another factor for engagement is fun, at least hooking the students into learning." So another platform that can be used in gamification is Jeopardy. Most of the kids are familiar with Jeopardy, and they know the basic structure of the game. So you have to answer in questions, and then circle the amount to win is to keep a tally for the note pack, or the OneNote table of contents. And this is some examples of the categories and the way that would be set up, and questions. And so Jeopardy again gives us knowledge. It reinforces that information and prepares the students to take a successful quiz. So the advantage is Jeopardy can be used in different formats. Small groups can divide and answer questions as a group. Teams can divide, 2 in a team, and help answer the questions. This might be a way that you can use collaborative learning to have one student that has more mastery of the subject work with another student as part of the review. And it can be used in a short time period during class. The disadvantages, they're quick answers. Essay and written questions don't fit the format, and there's no differentiation. There's no setup for students with individual needs, except for what I mentioned, if you pair the students up with someone that has more mastery of the subject to help another student in a collaborative learning situation. Cooperative learning is basically a game. You can integrate technology without sacrificing the valuable time of students working face to face. And the third game platform is 3D Game Lab. So 3D Game Lab it can be modified and by the teachers. It can be structured any way. And it could be a complete alternative to the OneNote. All of the information that I went over so far can be put onto 3D Game Lab, or it could be a platform for differentiation. A student that's more engaged with the challenges, leveling up. A student that might not be able to keep up with the regular classwork can augment that classwork with 3D Game Lab. So there's a lot of different ways that it can be used. This particular one is set up to start a particular chapter. So there's a crash course on the Great Depression, which is the subject of this chapter. There's a tour, which is embedded into the 3D Game Lab, where the students could access the tour, which is a survey of the chapter. They get points for signing in and get points for reviewing the PowerPoint. So the other steps that would be on there would be the power pack that's connected, or the note pack that's connected to the PowerPoint, and answer questions. So on each quest that the students get, they obtain different points. When they get to a certain level of points, or a certain total of points, they can level up to the next level. So all this can be customized by the instructor. There's tutorials on this that caution about making those point totals too high. You want the students to be able to access it. And so one of the things that it could be done is the sign up, which gives you 10 points, could level you up to the next level. And here's quest details. Work through the chapter 20 and answer the questions on the Word document. And then type complete, and they would receive those points. This is the chapter 20 tour that they would access. And then this is a link to a crash course on the Great Depression. These crash courses are about 7 to 10 minutes long, and they go over the information quickly. So it's a review of information that the students have went over. It's engaging, so the students tend to pay attention to it, and that constant review helps reinforce the information so they're able to retain it. All right, so the advantages of 3D Game Lab: it can be modified and customized to individual class needs. Quests can be constructed so students choose their own path, providing self-differentiation and instruction. As an example, a student could choose between answering 10 multiple choice questions or 3 essay questions on a subject and earn the same amount of XP points. The disadvantages is it's time consuming. Earning points and leveling up involves more class days than quick games. A degree of freedom must exist for play to thrive. Be sure to keep the learning objective focused and apparent to the student, and loosen up the reins on the path to achieve it. Good evening, class. This is your assignment for this evening. We are continuing our exploration of heroes and their value to society. The assignment and what to do: read the Hero Project information. There's a link here to that website. Watch the video. There's a link at the end of the Hero Project information, and this link is to the same thing on YouTube. Be prepared to write in class a short essay on a hero of your choice from below: Sergeant York, Audie Murphy, Senator John McCain, or a 9/11 first responder. Be prepared to explain why the person you selected is a hero and how his or her story affects the people that hear about it. Here is the Hero Project website. It's pretty short. Read over this, and at the end is the video. Have a good time and be prepared for class tomorrow, and we'll finish the assignment then. Have a good evening.